Alrighty, when I talk about my favorite cinematic universe, I'm not talking about Marvel, I'm not talking about DC, I'm talking about the racist cinematic universe. It has my favorite racist Spider-Man, conservative Superman, and the recently teased Batman. Who knows what he's gonna do? Hopefully he beats these thugs up. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's these two crowdfunded films called Superman Solar and Spider-Man Lotus. They've been surrounded by lots of controversy, including alleged xenophobia, homophobia, racism, pretty much everything. They got it all. And in this video, being a professional movie reviewer, I have to review it. But more importantly, I want to talk about all the controversy surrounding it. It's more interesting than the film itself. There's twists, there's backstabbing, betrayal. It's kind of insane. So I'm going to do a recap of all the events leading up to its release, but I'm not going to get too in depth because other channels have already covered it pretty well, so yeah. In 2021, an Indiegogo campaign was launched for Spider-Man Lotus, a non-profit fan film that will be written and directed by Gavin J. Conop. It also featured Gordon Wayne as Peter Parker and Sean Thomas as Harry Osborn. The film was inspired by Spider-Man Blue and The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. The campaign had a goal of $25,000 and everything was going great. They were releasing trailers left and right. They ended up collecting over 100,000. The trailers were actually so good that John Watts, the director of Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home, actually DM'd Gavin and actually told him how good it looked, essentially giving his blessing. And smooth sailing from there until June 18, 2022. Screenshots surfaced of Gordon Wayne using the N-word, saying, although nigga looks like he bombs shit for fun. He typed, y'all ever make good and funny memes just to flex on blurred vision niggas? Hey, that's fucked up. As a glasses wearer, I did not like that. He crossed the line. I'm personally offended. Unexcusable behavior. And after this unexcusable behavior was shown to people, he decided to make an apology. In his apology, he said that he grew up in a bubble, screenshots from high school, and he apologizes, blah blah blah. On June 20th, director Gavin J. Conop wrote a statement on his lead actor, saying that he was disgusted, he's extremely disappointed in his behavior, dumbfounded, bamboozled, led astray. But then he said, since it is like a fan project, very low budget, he can't really recast him without a whole bunch of new funding and all that. So he decided to keep him. However, one of the last lines in his apology, he said that in the past, Warden has been open with me about all these things, and people felt as if Gavin was complacent and he didn't take any action, and if he knew about it, why didn't he do something about it? Who knows? However, that's not the interesting part. 24 hours later, Gavin is exposed in screenshots as a racist. But it wasn't just screenshots this time. There were leaked sound memos, audio clips, lots of evidence of him using homophobic slurs, xenophobic language, and lots of racism. All of the slurs. He did it all. The funny part is, I thought he was disgusted by his lead actor. But then, let's hear his side of the story. He issued an apology. In his apology, he says all these screenshots and videos are from when he was 14 and 15. However, he does take full accountability for everything that he said. The most interesting part of his apology was that he said some of the screenshots are fake, so it's pretty hard to tell what is real and what is fake. However, he did say that all the things that were screen recorded are real. Oh yeah, remember that John Watts interaction? Well, apparently someone faked DMs with what assumes to be like another friend of his, saying that all his movies are still garbage. He did point that one out in particular and say that one was fake, and I kind of believe him. So I don't know, there's a lot of like fake drama about this film, and apparently now they're calling him a pedophile, but I don't know if the screenshots are real or not. It's really hard to tell nowadays. However, I'm not going to get too deep into the VFX drama, mainly because it doesn't lead to anywhere. One member complained about having to crunch, working really long hours, but apparently it's not Gavin's fault. I don't know. They made a new VFX team, all this. It's not really that interesting. But you know what's interesting? Why this movie was made? If you watch the campaign video, you'd see he loved Spider-Man as a kid. All this, always wanted to make it, blah blah blah. But in screenshots, the true intentions of this film is more obvious. He's trying to make a better film than these other YouTubers. He even says that he wants to fix the flaws of the MCU Spider-Man, and it becomes kind of obvious that he thinks that he can make like this incredible film, and there's like a lot of ego behind it. Even he admits that it's kind of toxic, and you know, ego and pretentiousness, it tends to ruin things. But the real question of all of this, you're probably thinking, how did all these screenshots leak? Someone had to post it. More importantly, who leaked all these screenshots? Insert dramatic music. There was once a 9-year-old boy. This boy looked up to Gavin. He idolized him for their shared love of Spider-Man. But then he found out he's not the man he thought he was. They were even supposed to make a Spider-Man movie together. But as his fame grew, the boy was ignored. Eventually, he was completely dropped. Now, this 9-year-old boy waits 5 years. He becomes 15. He was actually like close to turning 10 before, so the math works out. Anyways, this kid named Matt, no last name, 5 years have passed, and he held on to these screenshots and finally chose to release it now, because if he wasn't going to be a part of this movie, he simply wouldn't allow it to happen without it. Nah, this nigga petty. In his statement that he calls the full story, he says he was scared to expose him for years because of how strong the Lotus fan base was. But then he does say that he was influenced by him, as he did look up to him, and he would basically imitate him. So all the racism that Gavin was saying, he would repeat just because he thought it was edgy and like cool. So yeah, I think he's just cushioning the damage in case his screenshots ever release. But after all of this drama, twists, turn, deception, betrayal, the team behind the suit dropped a statement essentially asking people, is it possible to separate the artist from the art? And I kind of sympathize with them. It's not just a 3-man production. There's tons of other cast members, VFX team, crew, all these people behind the scenes. And if you don't believe me, there's like 20 minutes of credits. And to our knowledge, they haven't done anything. So should we separate the artist from the art? Well, that's what I'm going to do. I watched the whole film and I'll review it as fairly as possible. One of the first things that stands out is just how long this film is. This is not a short film like how most fan films are. This is a feature-length movie, and you feel it. It was pretty hard to review this since you can't expect as much from a low-budget fan film, so I decided to watch a bunch of fan films to kind of get a feel for what I should expect. I sadly watched Superman Solar, but more on that later. But my unbiased rating for Spider-Man Lotus as a fan film is a light to decent 5. I think that's more than reasonable. But as a movie or like just a piece of content that's on YouTube, I think it's a 2 out of 10. Mainly, it's so boring. Like, it definitely should not be a feature-length film. Before I get too deep into it, get too mean, I will say some of the shots look decent. Some of the acting is okay. A lot of it's not, but there are moments where the acting does shine. And the action scene in the beginning isn't horrible. It's okay for a fan film. It's kind of bad, but it's okay. And that's about it. Alright, I'm gonna do a pretty quick summary of the film, so I will spoil it. Don't recommend you watch it, but just in case you want to watch it, don't want anything spoiled. This movie is basically Peter Parker dealing with the loss of Gwen, and it leads him to put away the suit. He realizes just how many lives are hurt because of him. He feels like he's not a hero, and he puts the suit back on for this kid that really wants to see him, and the kid basically inspires him to put the suit back on. I mean, I am leaving out a lot. The reason Gwen died was Green Goblin, that's whole fight scene, blah blah blah. There are some B storylines with Harry and MJ, but those are the most underwritten stories I've ever seen. It's insane how underwritten that is. Those stories basically don't go anywhere. At least they don't feel like they go anywhere. But yeah, there's not much to say because there's not much movie there. Like I said, its biggest sin is its length and obviously the editing. Like with this final cut, I feel like you could shave off like 20 minutes just from like these insanely long establishing shots. And then there's these really long montages of characters just walking around. Like, I get that you're trying to show that they're sad, but there's other ways to do it. And from like the narrative standpoint, there's so many repetitive scenes that like give us the same information over and over again. that it feels pointless. On top of all of that, if you're going to have this insane runtime, you can't have Spider-Man, like his whole self-belief, his whole belief in himself change in one scene. Like the whole character does a 180 with one scene. It's kind of impressive that this movie is too slow, but then important character moments happen way too fast. Now I can keep going on about the inconsistent acting, the mediocre camera work, the bad writing, and much more. But I think the most important part of making a good fan film is capturing the spirit of the character, and Lotus kinda misses the mark here too. Like this guy, this actor, who's allegedly Peter Parker, just doesn't feel like Peter Parker. I think it's mostly a charisma thing, because like all the big actors have an insane amount of charisma, but like this guy doesn't even like make jokes when he's with his friends, and like his quips during an action scene are not clever or funny. They're just annoying. I don't know. Oh yeah, side note, speaking on the whole can you separate the art from the artist, there is a line in here. I'm gonna put it on screen. I mean, I'm unaware of this. I don't know how offensive this word is. I don't think it's that bad, but I don't know, I'm unfamiliar with it. It's like this weird joke that, like, I don't know if it's a joke. Like a lot of the movie you wonder, where's he going with this? What is happening? Why am I watching this? But that brings us to Superman Solar, that also completely misses the spirit of Clark Kent. See, this is also a controversial crowdfunded fan film. Now, looking through its production, I can't find anything too bad. There's not too many racisms. No leaked DMs or whatever. I don't know, I couldn't find the racism. Maybe there's something there, I don't know. Maybe something I missed. Leave a comment down below if there is something I couldn't find. I mean, the cast and crew are definitely right-wingers. But aside from that, I couldn't find anything. So, I mean, there were some interesting takes from the director. But aside from being funny, I feel you can't objectively call him racist. It's a little unfair. Try to be fair. But on Indiegogo, they had a goal for 25,000. Ended up only getting 20,000. So yeah, there's nothing really too interesting about the production of Superman Solar. So here's my review of Superman Solar, unbiased. This is where the controversy allegedly lies. Superman's written to be a little right-leaning, but it's not too explicit. I feel like most of the people that are mad at this haven't even seen the film. Just based off of clips on Twitter, it does seem, out of context, it does seem worse than it actually is. I don't know. It's not too racist. It's not too bad, in my opinion. But should you watch this film? Absolutely fucking not. I'm gonna be very upfront. This is strictly about the art, not about anyone's political standing or biases or whatever. This might be one of the worst films I've ever seen. I feel generous giving it a 2 out of 10. It might be a 1 out of 10. I mean, okay, I don't want to be mean, but it's just not very good. Like, it's shot so badly. The 180-degree rule. It's like, okay, there's this rule in filmmaking that you're not supposed to cross the line, blah, blah, blah. They destroy that rule so many times. It's insane. The editing is the most abrupt thing I've ever seen. Like, someone will just be talking in the middle of their sentence, hard cut, and it's not intentional. Alright, let me explain. I guess I have to say spoiler alert. Here's the premise of the film. I will be spoiling. I mean, you definitely should not watch it, but go watch it and come back. Superman is trying to stop someone from jumping off a building, and the whole story is told in flashbacks. This isn't a good idea. Because it ends up being Superman just talking about himself, and we barely learn anything about the kid. It's insane that the kid talks about being afraid, and the only way Superman can relate to this is about his fight with Brainiac. How was the kid supposed to relate to that? Like, the whole idea behind this film, if you watch his trailers and all that, is to make Superman more relatable. I mean, Superman had a regular childhood, so I'm sure there's times he was afraid, times he was scared he was gonna fail a test, scared about asking out a girl. I don't know, something that the kid can probably relate to. And while I was watching other fan films, I found this short film called A Friend Called Spiderman, and it's about Spider-Man talking someone out of jumping off a building. Kinda sounds familiar. The difference here is they actually have a conversation, and it's not him just talking about his origin story and making these broad points that barely make sense. It even reminds me of Spider-Man Lotus. In that film, Spider-Man just like trauma dumps onto this poor kid. Like, I don't know. These films were a pain to get through. I did not like them very much. Wait, let me think about some positives about Superman Solar. A positive would be, this movie isn't made from spite. It's not from a insanely egotistic and pretentious filmmaker. He genuinely just wanted to make a movie about his favorite character. It's made out of love. I think it's important to see what is bad about these films. For Superman Solar, it's execution, but for Spider-Man Lotus, it's trying to adapt these two comics that have a lot of heart and a lot of love and passion behind it. But when you have an egotistical, pretentious, kind of racist, actually just straight up racist director and writer and crew, it's kind of hard to adapt those. And, you know, there's a reason why people constantly champion diversity in movies and TV and all that. It's mainly to not create echo chambers. Like, you might watch this film and you're like, this is so boring. How could anyone think this is good? When you have an echo chamber, this is what happens. When you don't have anyone, or if you're just surrounded by yes men, this is what happens. So that was the really long and drawn out way to say, low-key, Superman Solar better. Mainly because at least they're just like some passionate comic book fans. But yeah, don't be racist. Don't want to create echo chambers. Like in one of the screenshots for Lotus, they just refused to ever hire a person of color. I don't know. I'm annoyed. Yeah, I don't know how to end videos. So thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe. I don't want to talk about these movies anymore. The end.
Miles, the blood!